Welcome to the MSDW podcast. I'm Jason Gumpert, editor at MS Dynamics World. On this episode, we are talking to some of the experts who presented at the Summit North America Roadshow event in Seattle this week, where members of the Dynamics 365 community came together to hear from Microsoft and their peers about D365 applications, Power Platform, and the broader technology landscape that they face. Microsoft kicked off the event with a tour of some of the latest Power Platform AI features in their Plan Designer, which recently reached GA, as well as a preview of Generative Pages, the latest new feature for building Power Apps. That focus on AI-driven capabilities became a theme of the day, woven into other functional and technical topics that people presented. In one interactive session, members of the event audience shared a range of ways that they've found value in putting AI-based tools to use in their jobs and in their personal lives. The range of examples included analyzing contracts, building better status and activity reports at work, helping design new PowerPoint slides, analyzing website design, and evaluating legacy ERP pages that were missing documentation. I talked to CRM industry veteran JC Quintana, who's also an author and Microsoft Alliance Director at Explorlogics, about his experience at the Roadshow where he presented. He noted that when it comes to applying these AI tools, he heard stories from the audience of people overcoming frustrations and inefficiencies, either at work or in their personal lives. He noted that when it comes to applying these AI tools, he is hearing from people about the frustrations and inefficiencies that they are trying to overcome. Here's JC.
But every time somebody would share a scenario, I would just kind of sense that sense of frustration and
or pride in overcoming it.
Exactly, and pride in overcoming it. That was indeed very personal. You know, there were a couple of examples about taking things like spreadsheets, which I get it. You know, we worked with spreadsheets for a long time, but to be able to kind of take a spreadsheet and do things that you would have to hire somebody to do, you would have to engage somebody to do, you'd have to collaborate with somebody to do, that it would take you individually too long to do. To kind of hear that, like you said, and the emphasis is great, personal stories on how people overcame challenges on their own with the use of AI was really exciting. You know, I think like with anything having to do with innovation or anything that, you know, crosses the chasm, right? You know, the whole analogy of crossing the chasm, you know, there are a lot of people that, as you pointed out, technologists, people who are ahead of the curve, that jump into things head on. And I did see some of that in the audience today and even in my own session. And so that is sort of what I saw when I saw AI coming our way. I saw people who were crossing the chasm, that were not afraid, that were willing to kind of get their feet wet. And, you know, in my mind, and I'm kind of giving myself away that I did not love or jump with incredible enthusiasm into the AI wave, right? I was one of the ones that said, no, that's not the regular person. That's the innovator. That's the crossing the chasm kind of person. I'm going to wait. But then I started seeing benefit me personally. And of course, I had to relate it to the things that I know, which are more the psychology and behavioral things. And then, then I started to notice. Then I started to notice that maybe it was the people that were crossing the chasm that were ahead, but right behind them were people who were frustrated saying, there's got to be a better way to do this. There's got to be an easier way to do this. And I'm spending way too much emotional capital doing things in frustration that I think AI is going to help me, you know, overcome that frustration with.
I also talked with Luciano Cunha, CEO of Stadion and another presenter at the event. He told me that what the Microsoft team showed today and the real-world accounts from users supported the idea that this technology adoption can progress from where it is right now.
It's moving, and it's moving pretty fast. So it's great to see some of where they are at now. You know, this whole idea of vibe coding and how you can sit in front of a screen and basically tell the application what you want, and it will create applications, or it will start with defining an agent and planning an agent and going all the way through creating full applications, right? So it's great to see that they're getting there and it's working. I have lots of contacts and people that I know who are doing vibe coding now 100% of the time. Okay, maybe 90% of the time, but it's already in the works and we see it happening. So that's a little bit of what we saw today, right? It's a combination of planning for creating your agent all the way out to leveraging multiple agents and managing the combination of multiple agents to create full applications. And I think that's where it's going to be. That's the future.
And Khaled Nasra of Enki Consulting, another Microsoft Channel veteran and presenter at the Summit event, said he sees differences between the individual contributor and the organizational deployment of AI today.
Interesting. I think in a meta way, there's more of a focus on each person and what they're doing. Whether it is around AI or not, I think everyone is kind of feeling the sense that they have to fend for themselves a little. That might be a level of the like Cambrian explosion of our channel that happens every few years where there's a lot of change. But at the same time, I think it's easier to think about the immediate use cases for yourself and the success that you can have. A lot of companies are set in their ways. And so having an organization level change is not going to happen easily. Also, changes from top down as opposed to bottom up are becoming more rare because the strategy is not changing much, but the way that we approach the market is changing. So a lot of companies are not actually going AI first. They're seeing AI as an opportunity to land and expand, which is the same strategy they've had with previous SaaS solutions. For individuals, the change looks a lot more dramatic because they are selling a new solution, or the way that they go about selling or they go about developing is changing.
As awareness and adoption of AI principles and tools expands in this community, organizational leaders will also be looking at how to accelerate the use of these tools for the benefit of their business. Luciano noted that leaders are focused on more complex scenarios that should lead to adoption of more full-featured agents.
The more complex scenarios are where you start to cobbling up agents. It's not just one particular person talking to ChatGPT and getting a summary or a response or, being able to create some content, but it's how do you cobble up multiple agents, creating something that then can be repetitive and then coming to an outcome that is actually going to help the business. And maybe if I get into my session, that was one of the things that I was talking about with the users, is that there is a large amount, and I think the number is about 76% of leaders want AI, right? They've passed on a little bit from the curiosity to they need to figure out how to use it and they want to use it. 60% of all of the leaders, they don't know how. They don't have a plan. They don't know how. A lot of them, what I've encountered and what I've seen when talking to our clients worldwide is that they focus on the AI component. How do I find something to feed AI? And one of the things that I was talking to the users today is forget about AI. Let's talk about your business. What are some of the huge problems that you have in your business? And then let's use an AI mentality to help solve those. And I think that what we saw a little bit is still to be evolved. Where some of the use cases are still fairly early on, fairly immature, and you're going to have to see, ISVs like us kind of pushing the edge there, creating multiple agents, working together to be able to drive not just an email or some text, but true outcomes for the business that is quantified into true value for the business. And one of the things that I was talking to in my presentation was that, kind of scaling is not quite figured out by the organizations yet, but that's okay. We're in the beginning stages of that. And so I talked a little bit about the readiness of the customers, right? And how do you prepare yourself for that? In my organization, for example, we've trained our entire team, whether they're going to be directly creating agents or working on AI components or creating models, doesn't matter. We trained everybody so that they can start to have that AI mentality, and then they can start to solve problems both for themselves within their role as well as for our clients in a bigger picture. So, and then after you see readiness, then you start to make sure that your data is also clean, because it's fine. You can just plug AI to anything, but if your data is garbage, you're going to get garbage out, and then start piloting some agents. And that's where, maybe it's okay to start with the user and then encapsulation of that user, and then you scale, because then you really understand, okay, here's how I can leverage these agents. And then you start to look at more enterprise-wide. What are some of the bigger contexts here? And how do we orchestrate multiple agents from potentially multiple departments working together to solve a real business need? So I think that's a little bit of the roadmap I gave to the users in my presentation earlier today.
And JC, who has written and spoken extensively over the years on the organizational factors that go into adopting customer-focused technology, told me the organizational planning fundamentals that he is so focused on will continue to drive the evolution of AI in business.
Yeah, you know that term, the more things change, the more things stay the same, right? So the saying goes. I think that that's the case with AI as well. I think that, and I noted this during my session when I said, there definitely is a very high demand with less people and less resources, and that includes money and people as well. So the bar has been set, or the perception has been set for leaders that AI can now help people with that gap. And so they're going to capitalize on it and they're going to take advantage of it. The problem with that is, and again, and I think this is where I was going with my session, is that it takes a collaboration between the leader and the user and the customer and the partner and people who live within this ecosystem of partnership that we have, including the community. So a manager may say, I'm excited about AI because it's going to help me accomplish my goals for acquisition, retention, enrichment, advocacy. And those are my metrics. Those are my success metrics. While we have people that are being asked to implement AI with enthusiasm that are not really, enthused about it, because to them, yes, sure. As an employee, I would love to help my company improve acquisition, retention, etc. But for me to do that, I'm going to have to make some personal sacrifices that maybe the cost does not weigh in my favor, does not weigh, on my favor, and it will end up on my behalf. And so I don't think, and I hope I'm not being negative, but I don't see leaders being empathetic enough to the fear that most users have of what they think AI will mean to them.
And as an alternate view, Khaled noted that fears of changes to come are real and understandable at this point.
Yeah, I think it's tough, because a lot of labor statistics tell us that there is a growing level of unemployment. We see that there is some churn with a lot of companies. You mentioned the aspect about individualism. And so for SIs, ISVs, and even users that are managing kind of expectations around customer ads, things like that, there's some trepidation in the market. I think there's trepidation and there's excitement at the same time, but you definitely sense that people want to be excited, but they're also pulling back a little. And I know with some SIs as well, they are seeing some growing adoption with customers, but it's taking longer. So AI as a new revolution is extending the sales cycle a bit because they want to inject it in. But now you're introducing a whole new value statement that you have to first define. You have to do a lot of unlearning and busting myths. And then you also have to sell your core products. And so it's actually extending the sales cycle by quite a bit. But then also economic factors come in, and they are also extending the sales cycle. So I know from some SIs that they're seeing the velocity through the funnel falling quite a bit.
If we are seeing businesses really move toward embracing agents in the way that Microsoft is now advocating, Luciano told me that it will lead to real disruption with organizations, including through job losses. He explained that people should prepare themselves for that possibility.
Another thing that I shared with the user group today was, we heard earlier that AI is not going to take people's jobs. I disagree. I believe that AI will take people's jobs. I think that we shouldn't be afraid of that. It's just part of the evolution of things, especially jobs that you can, for example, outsource, like BPO. Those are prime examples of cases where AI is going to take over. And no, it's not going to run by itself anytime soon, but you're going to see one person with a team of 10 agents rather than 10 people or 11 people doing the job. So, and I think that that's where we're going to see a lot of cost savings as well in the enterprise, being able to actually take on some resources out of the business to be able to do more with less.
And according to JC, business leaders, including those making decisions to invest in agent-driven solutions, need to keep sight of organizational fundamentals as they look for a return on investment.
Yeah, it goes back a little bit. If you remember, any leadership class that you've had over the years, one of the things that they taught us, along with the laissez-faire, manager versus the manager that is power-driven, right? One of the things that they taught us is that there are organizations where a leader is goal-oriented versus task-oriented. And so the leader today that is more goal-oriented and is not down in the minutia of the task and emphasizing how the task is to be done, but rather that the task gets done, is going to be the most successful. Because if you can kind of turn those AI tools loose on people and let them use it in their own way to achieve the task at hand, I think we're going to get further ahead faster than the leader that says, no, this is how I want you to use AI, and here's the minutia and detail of the task.
As an event in mid-2025, this week's Summit Roadshow here in Seattle shows us that at least some IT professionals are starting to embrace the tools that Microsoft and other major vendors are offering up for AI, though largely at an individual level rather than as part of any top-down plan. What that means for vendors with their sky-high ambitions for their AI solutions is that uncertainty will continue as people mix their deeply personal goals, both at work and in the rest of their lives, with the colder realities of businesses looking for a competitive edge to boost productivity and reduce costs. And that's it for this episode of the MSDW podcast. We were at the Summit Roadshow here in Seattle, and we will be moving on to the Business Applications Partner Executive Summit next, where we hope to do some reporting. Thanks to all of my guests on this episode, Khaled Nasra, Luciano Cunha, and JC Quintana. Really appreciated their time and hearing from them today. If you have any feedback, you can get in touch with me by email, jason@msdynamicsworld.com. For all of our updates, please do follow us on LinkedIn. Until next time, this is MS Dynamics World, signing off.